Welcome back. Indarrak berritu ostean bigarren saioari ekingo diogu. Teknologiak erabat aldatu du ikusentzunezko esparrua eta beraz baita kazetaritza ere. Zuzeneko konexio bat egiteko satelitedun kamioi bat erabiltzetik telefono mugikor batekin mirariak egitera igaro gara. Teknologia etengabe ari da aldatzen eta ezin gara atzean geratu. The next discussion topic is not a small one, innovation and trends. The media landscape is constantly evolving, driven by the rapid advancement in technology. In today's digital age, innovation is not just a buzzword, but a necessity for the media industry to thrive. We couldn't have a better moderator for this session. Guillaume Kuster is the CEO and co-founder of Check First. He is an expert trainer in the field of digital storytelling for the news and has trained more than 2,500 journalists worldwide, among them myself. Thank you. He also used to be a journalist for 20 years for the French public service broadcasters, Radio France and France Télévisions. In this session, Guillaume will introduce all the speakers as well as guiding the Q&A in the last part of the session. Let's give him a warm round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, all. Really glad to be here. I'm sure you spent the better part of the break checking all the scene videos that Nella wanted to show you. Certainly very interesting ideas on how to stay relevant as broadcasters and news organizations. So I was asked to act as a sort of dictionary for you today, deciphering these tech buzzwords that we see flying around. So, you know, AI is a big one. Everybody's been talking about ChatGPT. We're going to leave that for the second session. There's going to be 2 dictionary sessions. And the first one is going to be more on the seemingly not that interesting stuff, because, you know, 5G, who cares about 5G? We'll see how it can enable us to talk differently to people and to move them and for longer. But if you try to sort these terms and acronyms into categories, it boils down to content creation and content consumption. And if you want to sort of classify them, it looks sort of like that, where 5G sits in the middle. It's the infrastructure that will enable the rest of these technologies. And in broad terms, AI leans onto the side of content creation, as well as generative AI. We're going to talk about that. And on all the R's, extended reality, mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, is more leaning on the side of content consumption, but there are some, you know, fuzzy borders in between all of these terms. So let's start with the seemingly boring one. Yeah, okay, 5G. I can read 5G on my phone. What does it give me? If you're like me, you got a subscription because some clever 22-year-old telco seller lured you into buying one. And then what changed? Well, not much, seemingly, for now. But actually, when we start to look about the content creation side of things, what we can see is that it gives a much better infrastructure for us, and for many other people, by the way, which is going to be a challenge, to talk to people and to reach them. So it's the fastest mobile wireless connectivity available on the market today. You can reach speeds up to, in some markets, like the US, like 4, 5 gigabits a second, which is a lot of bandwidth. Very important for lives. We can have low latency connections, instant, snappy connectivity, and a lot more devices connected at the same time. If you're a football fan, anyone in the room who enjoys going into like very crowded stadiums, trying to post something on social media from a football stadium with 40,000 people in the arena is nearly impossible on 4G. It just works on 5G. So that's one of the advantages of the technology. And it's reliable and stable. So the important part is, what does it do for us? So what it does for us, basically, it smoothens production and makes it cheaper in terms of transmission. We all remember and still use satellite connection If there's any financial department personnel in the room, you know how much they cost. 5G is much cheaper to enable multicam operations. So it's been widely used in sports, for instance, where you have cameras on the field, but the gallery remains at the headquarters. So all the transmission is made to enable multi-camera settings. So that's one of the things that 5G enables in terms of production. So less personnel to be moved around. Paris is going to host the Olympics next year. So there's going to be a lot of cameras flying in, but not so much galleries. Galleries are going to be remaining in these countries, in the US and Asia, because we have the ability to transmit data through these networks, in part 5G. And as for reporting, going live on social or on TV, it actually works this time. I don't know if some of you are using 4G live broadcasting. We know it's not great, but with 5G, it does work, and you can go live with your phone from anywhere. But there's something else that we haven't been using so much because, well, it's a future, it's a near-term reality, which is that mesh of all these devices and sensors and stuff that are going to be monitoring and collecting data in our cities, in our transportation systems, in our administrations, and all of that data is going to bring us stories. So 5G progressively is going to enable smart cities. I live in Helsinki, as some of you know, and Helsinki is a huge smart city project where they want to smoothen and optimize traffic, housing, a lot of health services, a lot of parameters. And we all know that knowledge is key, and you get knowledge by measuring, collecting data, analyzing it. But as journalists, data journalism is going to be boosted by all that massive new data sets that are going to come and become available. Now, if we look on the content consumption side of things, what does 5G enable? It's basically bigger, better, more, right? So if you look at what the telcos are saying, GSMA is an association of telecommunication operators. They forecast that mobile data traffic is going to increase by 25% a year up until 2030. That's huge, right? So more people online doing more data-intensive stuff. And what kind of stuff could that be? Well, we already know that video is a big part, and I talked about it. And there's going to be future implications. We don't really know what they are yet. We have some hints, and we're going to go through them when we start talking about the R's of these extended reality things. But it's going to allow more people to consume more content and publish more content from the mobile phone, basically from anywhere. There are some technical hurdles. As of today, 72% of Europeans can go talk to the 22-year-old telco salesperson to get a 5G subscription. But we're not there yet. We project that in 2 years' time, less than half of Europeans will actually have one. And one of the reasons for that, even if you look at Finland, which is one of the most advanced countries in terms of 5G deployment, it's very spotty. Most people live here, that's right. Strangely enough, there's a lot of coverage around Russia, don't know why. But what I mean is, it's going to take time and resources and for the telcos to figure out how they will spend the money to give the population the ability to use these networks. So as we said, when you look at the picture today, 70% of mobile data traffic is video. So the projection, taking into consideration the 25% increase in the global amount of data that will be transmitted, is that video is going to be 80% of the global mobile traffic in 2028. So what this means is basically, although seemingly boring, 5G is the backbone of mobile data transfers and many applications, some of which we know what they are, some of which we kind of guess, and some of which we really don't know what they're going to be. But the infrastructure is being built right now. So what can all that data availability enable? Well, that's when we start talking about the other buzz tech words. So all the Rs are probably going to benefit from that underlying infrastructure that exists. XR, if we are going back into the dictionary role here, is kind of an umbrella term for the three other ones. It's extended reality. And VR, you probably heard about that because we have these goofy goggles that are being sold right now that enable you to look through a computer-generated world. If we talk about that briefly, it's exactly what you think. It's strapping a massive headset onto your head, mostly to play games. That is what is driving the market today. And committing to spend time disconnected from the world around you and immersing yourself into a fictional world. So that thing, like many others, benefited from the pandemic. So if you look at the sales figures in million, you can see that we have about 60 million VR headsets in circulation today in the world. It's something, but compared to the 3 billion smartphones we have on the planet, it's nothing, right? But it's slowly growing, but the technology is not at the point yet where it's something that we want to be wearing. Even, I have one, I have to confess. It's in a drawer now, right? Because, yeah, you play it around, it's cool to play Beat Saber and to watch maybe a really immersive documentary or something, but then it's not really compelling. In terms of journalism into VR, there are some experiments. So it's mainly strapping that headset on your head and looking around, which is terrible to try to simulate to you for a room of 200 people now. And you would, wander around in some part of the world, and there is some narrative structure, but we don't see a lot of these documentaries today. Again, low penetration of the headsets, and also that doesn't create many incentives for us to invest into the production of these contents outside of the innovation labs that we might have within the companies. Another example is like, live the life of an inmate in a women's prison. So it's essentially long-form, immersive formats that we've seen created with honorable success rates, right? It's not really like bangers that we are talking about. But one part of virtual reality can be defined also in another way. How many of you have teenagers at home? Please raise your hand. Yeah, right. So if I show you that, I guess you know what we're talking about. These massive online multiplayer games are virtual realities. They are, even if they are not strapping these headsets on their faces, these kids or adults are immersing themselves into social situations where they meet other people and they live or they join a world that exists and continues to exist after the game session and lives its own separate parallel world life, right? How can you do journalism there? There was, just a few weeks ago, a really interesting story by Helsingin Sanomat, which is the main, if not the only, newspaper in Finland. And what they did is they created a newsroom in Counter-Strike. So as a gamer, you would, okay, that's a strange place, what's in here? And you would find a briefing room that was designed to tell Russian players about the events in Ukraine. These guys are cut off from the world news created by the West. They are under the propaganda of the Russian regime. And by just playing casually Counter-Strike, they find that brief room that informs them about the reality. It's brilliant and naive in a sense also, because it can be dismissed. Trying to get something into a young Russian brain can be challenging, but it's interesting as a way to bring the news and journalism into these virtual spaces, right? We can touch briefly on the AR side of things. Nella did a really good job about explaining what it is. It's mostly waving your phone around, right? So finding your way around the city, getting to know about the pollution levels after a massive forest fire, for instance. That is something the New York Times has been experimenting with. Could be also trying to explain what happens when we all stick these cotton swabs into our noses. And it's waving, for now, our phones around. And it's cumbersome, and you do it once, and maybe, you know, there's some peer pressure from friends where they will tell you, oh, that's fun, try it out, and you'll do it, and then you move on and don't really make it a habit. Until maybe, probably, these try to catch on. So these AR glasses, if you look at them, you can see that they show you reality, and they have built-in screens to overlay stuff on top of reality. Today, they are still cumbersome because what is not in the picture is the massive cable that is going somewhere on your phone or in a computer. So the technology is not there yet, but I do agree, as Nella said earlier, that they are eventually going to be there and lightweight enough and convenient enough that we are, you know, not going to be looking like the glass holes, if you remember the Google Glass from 10 years ago, right? MR, to end the first section of the dictionary, is a bit of both, is mixed realities, basically overlapping dynamic content on top of the existing world. So that is more something that is being used in industries today, like for factory worker trainings, for design work, like architects might want to use that. It's a way to prototype stuff and to see what it would look like and to iterate more quickly. But there might also be really interesting storytelling possibilities enabled with that. But again, we sort of need to wait for that momentum. You know, are people going to get these glasses? Apple is going probably to announce next week their version of these goggles, so we'll see what that looks like. But that is one possibility that is moving. We have already some applications on television, and you're going to hear more about that, which is like making TV content, overlaying 3D graphics on top of the reality. So we have that strange tradition in France on the national 14th of July day, where we show off our military for some reason. And you can't really fit a big nuclear submarine in the middle of Paris. So they decided to use MR technology or AR, there's an overlap in the terminology there, to do explainers and to just embed that generated content. So you need a bunch of sensors, you know, to get a sense of space. Where is the presenter? Where's the camera? And where do we implement these assets? And it's expensive still because you need to create these 3D graphics, you need to rehearse, you need to have a lot of sensors and technique. But as all things technical, that'll become cheaper, right? So I'm keeping the big one for a little bit later, and I'm going to talk to you about AI and all its implications to the extent of what can be talked about in 10 minutes in the second session. And for now, I would like to welcome to the stage Noora Santavuori from Yle YLE in Finland to tell us about what's new in Finland. Welcome, Noora.
Does this work? Hope so. Hello, I'm Noora from Finland, working for the Finnish broadcasting company, Regional Operations, as an executive producer. And past 10 months of my work has been very visual. I've been working on I've been focused on the development of online video narrations, and today I'm going to give you just a small glance what we have done, and especially what we have learned so far, and what we will be focusing in future. I'm going to talk about online video. I'm going to talk about the young audiences, because that's what we are targeting for. But all of our video process that we are making at the moment, it's a part of a much larger goal. The goal is to create the best possible visual news journalism for all our audiences. It's kind of awesome and kind of hard. And when we talk about visual news journalism, we are not just talking about the video, we are talking about all kind of visual elements that we have. It's how does our online platform looks like when the audience comes there? What do they see? What does our television news studios, what they look like? What does the audience see when they open the TV? We are talking about the pictures, the images that we use on our online stories, on our online articles. We talk about the graphics, the animations that we use online or at the TV. So it's a lot more than just a video. You can see these two very visual circles. This is not what we are doing visually. But me and my colleague, we've been using these circles to kind of show what we are trying to achieve with the online video at the moment. We're doing the video process at the moment online first. We're targeting the young audience, but for the future and for our visual news journalism, we are also trying to find as much as common ground as possible with the television. So the video narration that we are creating online, we are also trying to find these multi-platform formats that we can use on both platforms. And I think in a way we've used this to describe our video, but when we look at the goal we have, I think this represents also all the visual goals that we have. Before we talk more about the video, I'm just going to tell you what is happening in the background towards our goal. At the moment, everyone in our news and current affair organization have gone through these conversations when we have talked together what is a good visual journalism, what does it look like, what does it need, what is my role in it. So that in order to have a common goals and common understanding what the visual journalism, what it is and what it will be. We have done some organizational structure movements. We have brought our journalists and visualists working together. And when I talk about visualists, I mean our cameramen, camerawomen, I mean our crafts, our photographers, everyone who's working with the visual sides of journalism. And we have brought them together with the journalist and make the ideas, make the content together. We have been focusing on online a lot during the past years. We have a platform that we've been processing a lot, but at the moment we're actually building new TV studios. They will be launched next year. There will be a new look, new technology, and new workflows, and it will work together with our online content. And at the moment we're testing and developing storytelling methods and the concepts and the workflows for the future and for these new studios. I think most of us in the room share the same history. We have a very strong history with the television content. That is our tradition. Also in YLE at the Finnish Broadcasting Company. The video online is pretty new to us. We know video, we know how to make them, but we have been lacking out different kind of concepts for online videos when we talk about news. And then there is this challenge that we talked during this morning, the young audiences. We all want them, and when we talk about the young audiences, we talk about people under 30s, even maybe under 40s. I feel myself still young. So we want to get them. We want them to consume our news. And we know that the Generation G, they live with their smartphones. This is their window to the world. With this, they can look anywhere and look whatever they want. They have these video platforms that they use. They have Instagram, they have Instagram Reels, they have different kind of Instagram stories, TikToks, YouTube, you name it, Snapchat, etc. And hopefully, at some point, they will see our video content and like it. So in this order, we created 6 video concepts. At the beginning, a bit over a year ago, there were 5, and beginning of this year, we added one more, the 6th one. And the purpose of these concepts is to help our journalists, is to help our visualists in brainstorming and planning what kind of online video they should make. This is not the rule book, but this is to help the everyday work that they're doing. And we also wanted to establish suitable names for the videos, so we have a common language, how we can speak with each other. If we talk about explainer video, everyone knows what kind of format we are talking about. And the video for us, with this concept, it works online first, but all of these concepts are meant to work also on TV. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I would probably need 30 minutes more if I will show you all of the concepts that we have made. So I'm trying to present them to you with only a few sentences. Here are the first 3 ones. And I would like to point the one in the middle, which is the newest one of these concepts. Normally, when we use video online, it's normally with the article. It's normally with the text, with some kind of a supplement. So the video can be just a small point of view of the news. It can be some emotional clip, or it can just show you the news event, or tell just a narrow point of view. And then it can be added and made it more larger news with the text. But when we use these kind of online videos on television, it needs something around it. It normally needs a telegram or a news anchor to tell what's the news here and what the videos is going to be about. So now we created this one online concept, video story, and it's independent. It doesn't need anything around it. If we use it online, it might just need a topic, nothing more. Just a topic, and the video itself tells everything you need to know. And this is a very good format for us in regional operations, because in our news broadcast we don't have news anchors, so in this kind of format it suits very well for our TV platform, but it also suits very well online. And this is one of these work methods that we are testing at the moment for our new television news studios. Here are the last 3 ones, and here I think I want to point out the explainer. From my point of view in our regional operations, this one has become, I think, the favorite of our journalists. It can vary a lot. The most easiest way to do it is that our reporter sits at her or his home on a sofa and is filming with his mobile phone, telling the story shortly. What is this news about? What do you need to know? What is this thing? Or you can film it at the news scene with the cameraman or camerawoman. You can use graphics. It can be very personal driven or very news driven. There's a lot of variation. The only thing is that the journalist making this has to be there on their own face. And that was a bit scary in the beginning, because the style of this video is not like a news reporter. It's person talking to a person. It's a friend talking to a friend. But it has become one of our favorites, and we have tested this at the regional TV news, and it has worked very well. also on TV, and different variation of this explainer video has also gone through our national TV news. So what have we learned after focusing on these concepts for a bit over a year now? The first seconds are the most important. Actually, we heard in the morning that the 1 second with a young audience, I'm over 40, so for me, the swipe takes 3 seconds. Some of you maybe even longer. But let's make the compromise of 2 seconds. But it's a short time. So the question we have to ask when making these videos is what we want to show. What is your first picture? What is your catch? How we can get your attention. And we see from our data that the most of our videos, they flop after 2 minutes. And it's normal, 2 minutes, 2 seconds, and it's normal. But we really have to focus on how we start our videos. What's the picture? What's the story? And we also have to put the topic in the beginning. We have to tell the most important thing at the beginning. So we give the motive why to watch this video. Online, the narrative should be concise. Even a minute is a long time. But what we have seen from the data is that the journalistic storytelling and the visual plays, they actually play a bigger role than the duration. We can have a video of 3 minutes, and if it's very visual, if the story is very, very interesting, it doesn't matter how long it takes. The narrative has to be dense and fast-paced. Our storytelling in television has been much slower that we now have to do online. So we have to think more about what kind of images we use, more close-up, more different angles, how we show things that we cannot show, how we represent our reporters, how they speak, where they stand, how they act when we're interviewing people, how we place them in the picture. We have to think about all of that. But we have to think the picture differently because most of the videos are seen from the smartphone screen. So you cannot use a lot of white pictures. You have to come close. And I think that the most important thing that we have found out from our data and from our journalists and our visualists is that they have to work together. And they have to work together when they start planning the topic so they can build the story right. They have to work together to think, how does this look like in the end, how we will tell this story and build them together. And people, our journalists and visualists who have been doing these concepts at the moment, they have done incredible work with this. So this has been one of the most effective thing on producing these online videos is to bring these people together and our visualists in the brainstorming how will our stories online and TV look like. Ooh, what has happened here? This spring, we also asked our young audience, what do they think about the videos we have made online? And do they think they're online videos or do they think they're more like TV videos? And the one thing they picked up is the context, because we're serving them news, and that's what they expect from us. They want the information, they want the fact, they are interested where we get our information, because they trust that we tell them where we get our information, they trust us that we tell them the truth, so they want to know everything about the news, and they want to know the reason why was this video made. That's why the beginning is so important. And after the video, if they ask themselves what I've learned, they need to have an answer. If they're like, yeah, nice video, but I'm not sure what I got got it from it. So we really need to think about the narration, just the visual and the context. What's the topic, what we want to tell, and there has to be news. The tempo, that was the one point that the audience picked up. We really need to speed up. We thought we speed up, but we really need to speed up even more. But we are on the right track. The tone of voice is very important. We have to get off the news note. Relatable narrative works better than an official one, and we can do that by changing the position of the reporter talking without the big microphone, just explaining on herself with her own voice or his own voice, and really focus on the direct presence. That works best, and we have tried that with our reporters, and we have tried that also with our people who we are interviewing. And if we're telling some very intimate and emotional story, that works very well. We have also been using graphics, especially on our explainer videos, and the audience thought that this will increase credibility, but it should be used very thoughtfully. So if there's too much, it will ruin the content, and the people don't have time to listen and watch what is going on. They keep focusing on graphics, but in a right way used, the video can increase credibility by graphics. For me, I think these notes that our young audiences made from our videos is very comforting, because these were the facts that we already knew. These were the points we knew that we have to focus on. So at least we are on a right track with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noora. Please be seated. We're going to need you for the Q&A. Kiitoksia. And don't forget, you can scan the QR code there to ask your questions, and we're going to bundle all the questions at the end of the session, Innovation and Trends, and ask all the panelists at the same time. I'd like to call up on the stage Carlos García-Verdugo from CRTVG, Galicia. And he's going to talk to you about how to mix it all together. There's an initiative about, trying to make the better out of television, radio, and digital. So please give a big round of applause both to Noora and Carlos.
Thank you.
And yes, it's going to be a little bit of internal cuisine and plugging in to do. But the stage is yours.
Okay. So, painting the radio, kind of analogic title for an innovation chat, right? I'm going to try to explain it in the next minutes. Egunon, good morning. I'm here to tell you what our multimedia radio studio is and how it works. It's been active for at least 14 months, and in that time it has become a strong pillar for the content production in our corporation, on TV, on radio, and on digital channels as well. It is located in the radio building, so hypothetically we could say that it belongs to the radio, but in fact it feeds content to TV, to the radio, and to the digital channels. It's important to clarify for us that when we say multimedia, we don't mean three media. Everything that is done in this studio is not mandatory to have to be broadcast on TV, on radio, on digital channels at the same time. What is needed is that everything that is done in this studio has to have the quality enough, it has to be valid for the channel chosen for a specific content. So the objectives set for this project, the things we chasing from the beginning, were three. First of all, to have a good balance between easy and ready, easy to use and always ready to produce. The second one is that it has to have the quality enough for every single channel in our TV station and in our radio station, so it has to have broadcast standards, especially for the TV productions. And the third one, probably the most important, we needed a studio that was versatile and scalable, that can be run by the small team of two people, but that can be used as a host of a big production with the combination of a lot of resources in our company. So, the arrival of this studio has made a lot of changes in our company. New workflows, new location, new production, so it needed a change of the mindset. And sometimes at the beginning, we can be kind of lost, even the audience. This happened like 3 or 4 months ago. One of our guests, after the interview, he posted this on social media. We've just been on TV, YouTube, radio. He was kind of confused. It's understandable, but we don't want it inside our company to guarantee a good change, to guarantee the accomplishment of the workflows. So in other places, they create for this kind of changes one new name. Let's take a look at this. I must admit, I borrowed the title of this panel from something I heard, from something I saw, something obviously I like. In another TV station, in Apunt, in Valencia, they also have this multimedia studio with cameras. They also can go live broadcast on TV if they want. And they were referring always to this studio as La Radio Pintada, the painted radio. I think it works very well. In our case, the change came in a way more organic, I think. It came by using it. By using this studio a lot, and from just the day after the launch of this studio. This is an example. This is our first TV channel, TV Galicia, the one which has the best ratings in terms of audience. And this magazine started to broadcast from this multimedia studio the day after we launched the studio. We're still doing that, and it's working very, very well. We're doing a lot of kind of different contents in this multimedia studio. We're using it for the radio news. It's also prepared for unexpected breaking news on TV. We're doing late-night talk shows. We're doing some magazines. It's working very well with the sports. And we also are doing video podcast for segmented audience. We have one based on interviews to great talents, figures, and personalities in our radio country. We have another one addressing to the Gensers with culture subjects. We have a third one which talks about trips and travels, and another one which talks about technology. So we're using it for a lot of things, this multimedia studio. But as I said before, it's scalable, and we can turn it for a special event that we will see later. So it can be run, as I mentioned before, with only 2 people. We have a small team of 2. It's like can happen for the radio news, for some of the video podcasts, but also it can be run by a full group in 2 or 3 different controls. This happens when we go for special events, as you can see, the audio control room, the TV control room, and the multimedia studio. We're using this kind of special events, for example, for the electoral debates. This is from two weeks ago. Let's see. I don't have a Wi-Fi? Yeah. Sorry. As you can see, we are jumping from the main set on the TV station to the multimedia radio station, which hosts, in this case, the electoral debates. In all these cases, the production is enriched in the other control room, in the TV control room, where there can be titling, graphics, live connections, etc. It can get more complicated. I want to show you what we did with the elections in Andalusia. In this case, the multimedia radio studio was the host, the center, the core of a more complex production with a full crew in the radio station, with a full crew in the TV station, with live graphics, with live connection, with split screens, with video calls, everything that you can say for a great event, for a complex production. So the main tools that we use in this multimedia studio are 4. The multicam, which handles the automated mode for the video. The air rate, which handles the video call system. The cameras, obviously. We have 4. All of them are Sony PT set. And the video wall that we use as a background. So here comes an explanation, technical explanation given by a journalist, so sorry in advance. With our multicam, is the main system of our multicam studio. It has three branches, 3 different branches. First of all, multicam radio related with the automated video mode. Second one, the air bridge, who takes care of the video calls. And third one, multicam studio, when we want to go for something more complicated, we want to go manual, is the software that we use. So the multicam radio is used in almost 90% of the time in this multicam, in this studio. It is integrated with the audio console, so it can perceive the active microphone, the active speaker, and it launches a group of shots, a group of takes that are attached to that microphone. It's more or less how it works. We have different presets for almost every program, and these shots can be prioritized. And we also have a touch screen that we can during live session, we can go manual by touching one of the microphones and force one specific shot of one specific microphone for up to 30 seconds. This is how it looks inside the control room. As you can see, there are the speakers. This is the sound mixer operator, and it's living completely alone, completely free. These 2 computers, the multicam computer that is working by itself, changing the shot, changing the takes, okay? So only one sound mixer operator can run the whole production, both the audio and both the video production, okay? The average is the system that we have to do the video calls. It allows us to have up to 4 guests in the waiting room. It also allows us to manage to handle the audio settings and the video settings of the device. So it's very useful for a breaking news. For example, we can use the front camera or the rear camera from a device if we want. And most of the times, we can turn a casual video call almost in a live connection for the TV, as in this case, with our former Mojo correspondent in Portugal, Alberto Mancebo, which is talking about the beautiful region of Pinhão and its perfect wines. And the airbags also can be used with virtual cameras, so you can go for more complex connections from a remote place, like in our program of technology. We will see right now. When you can make some scenes with these virtual cameras, in this case, talk about video games with a more complex video call. As I said before, it's reliable, it's quite stable. So, and when we want to go very more complex production, we can go manual, as you can see. In this case, when we combine different resources, sources, tools in our company, in this case, we have a full crew inside the studio with a video editor or a video director handling the multicam with the video mode, with the sound mixer operator taking care of the console of the audio, and also we have a second control room where the production is enriched with live graphics, live connection signals, lines, etc. The video wall screen can be run by the operator and also by the anchor from its own laptop. We use this media on the video wall to customize every format, every production that we have. And also, we use it a lot for the final edition of the video podcast, as in this case, in this program, this show that talks about trips and travels. And this is interesting too. The Multimedia Studio, all that is done in the Multimedia Studio is connected with the central media production platform. It means that the media is instantly shared with almost 150 people inside our corporation. So this is the case for this visit we had with the second Vice President of Spain, Yolanda Díaz. The interview took place in the Multimedia Studio, and during the interview, all the people could have access to the media to do their own tasks, like editing, putting some locators, without wasting any time. It works as well with the Media Archive department, and this is one of the best things we have with this Multimedia Studio. Let's see some numbers. As I mentioned before, it can be run by only 2 people. It takes us about 2 or 3 minutes to start the system, start the lights, the video wall, the aircon inside the set, the audio console, the multicam computer, about 2 to 3 minutes. And actually, we have about 13 different presets, depending on the number of speakers, the lesser or the greater use for the video wall, the rhythm of the production. And they are giving about more than 100 different shots, 100 different takes with this system. So I think we could say that we met the expectation and find something with a good balance between easy and ready, easy to produce and ready, easy to use and ready to produce always. So as I said before, we're using it a lot. From Monday to Friday, we're going live on radio 15 hours a day. We're live streaming in our digital channels, in our website, on YouTube, on Facebook, 15 hours. We are doing 1 hour live broadcast in our first channel, TV Galicia, and another 6 in our second channel, Geduas. On weekend, we're doing 18 hours live on radio and 16 hours live streaming on our website and on our digital channels. And we also are recording 4 video podcasts every week. So summarizing, we're doing more than 100 hours of production for at least 6 different channels in our radio TV station. So, what could we next to improve the performance of this? Okay, we think that we could give the anchor, the presenter, more freedom to enrich their production, okay? To go full screen, to insert some videos, to insert some playlists, and we think that we could do it easily by putting a layer above the audio, the studio playout, with helped by an open source like OBS or something like that, and with a mixer device like Stream Deck. Anyway, this is in an early phase of discussion yet. And this is it. This is how it works, how we understand this multimedia studio in our radio TV station. I hope it was useful for you. If you have any doubts, here are my contact. Don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Turning your TV presenter into streamers, it seems, getting a lot of inspiration from Twitch and the live streams. As I can see, don't forget you can scan the QR code and ask questions to Carlos that will be addressed later on during the Q&A session. And speaking of, I've seen already questions because we've touched about the mixed reality topics earlier. And that is exactly what the next speakers are going to talk about. So I'd like to welcome to the stage Steinar Bjørlykke from NRK, the Norwegian broadcaster. He's the head of technology and development, with Francisco Ibáñez, who's the research and development projects director at Brainstorm Multimedia. The floor is yours. We'll see about the store later.
Thank you. So I'm Steinar Bjørlykke. I'm head of technology and development in the central region in NRK.
I am Francisco Ibáñez. I'm the research and development director at Brainstorm Multimedia.
So we had the opportunity to get together some years ago and bid for a Horizon 2020 project. And the background was really that we at NRK had a challenge. That in the parliamentary system, of course, you have many parties. So if you have a political debate, how many are you supposed to include into your broadcast? And of course, TV producers, they want as few as possible, and 8 or 9 is unmanageable. And also, we wanted to bring participants, the audience, into the studio as well. And usually when you do that, they are reduced to sort of a small stamp on a big video wall, and it doesn't seem to create sort of an equal tone of voice. But we really wanted to have a solution where we can bring people into the studio and let the electorate meet the electees on more even terms.
Yeah, Brainstorm is a provider of virtual studio solutions. We have been working with the teleportation concept for many years. At the beginning, we were doing some productions with the teleportation technology, but using professional equipment, professional cameras, professional green screens, with good sound and good lighting. Also broadcast communication networks. But after our participation in the digital news initiatives of Google, where we had the possibility to test the artificial intelligence algorithms in order to extract the background from a scene with no need of green screens, we decided that it was a good opportunity to simplify our solution and to use mobile phones, the cameras of the mobile phones, to capture the people, and artificial intelligence algorithms to extract those people from the background and include it using our virtual studio solutions as a mixed reality object in the scene. So in this case, the teleported people would have the possibility to interact and to talk with somebody in the TV studio remotely.
So for a broadcaster, we've been making virtual sets for a very long time. Our main motivation also was, okay, how can we really utilize as few resources as possible? And also, as Carlos explained, we need to simplify and keep the resource allocation to a minimum.
Well, at this point, I need to check that with the needs that Steinar from NRK had, and the technology and our aim to simplify the technology, we decided to do something together.
And then we got together with a lot of different companies. Of course, we had brilliant technology companies in the virtual space with Brainstorm and De-cyphering. And academic partners were NTNU in Norway, and also EPFL in Switzerland, and UPF in Spain. And then there was us three broadcasters, which was NRK and Premier Sports, which is a UK sports outlet, and also TV Romania, which is always also here, I think. So we got together and found out, okay, how can our requirements as broadcasters, together with the technology partners in the industry and research and science from the academic partners, how can we get together and kick off a project?
Yeah, in this project, what we wanted to do, it's the next slide, it was to simplify the technology. And what simplify means? Simplify means that instead of using professional cameras and professional setups, we wanted to make the capture of the remote people to be included in the television set with mobile devices, with a mobile phone, a tablet, or a webcam of a laptop. We wanted to extract those remote people with no need to have green screens, using artificial intelligence algorithms. We also wanted to have some kind of artificial intelligence technology in order to increase the resolution, because sometimes the cameras of these devices are not good enough, and integrate everything in our virtual solution in order to bring the audience to the TV studio, included as mixed reality objects.
So having working with news and in broadcasting for a long time, of course, the best camera is the one that you have with you all the time. So it doesn't really depend on the size. But also the requirements to actually, this camera in front of the screen is not that great. It's about 720p, which is a technical specification. So using machine learning and artificial intelligence and super resolution algorithms to actually increase that, that was science fiction only 5-10 years ago, but now it's commonplace and you can see it everywhere.
Yeah, how the system works, we will see video later, but we have an application that is called Admire, that is the name of the project, where we capture the audience. This app is running in mobile phones or in laptops or in tablets. And this app has also a virtual control room that is in the television. So all the streams, all the people, remote people that is captured, is included in the virtual room with the different streams. The moderator or the operator that is in the television selects one of them, and to this stream, there's a process where we apply the background subtraction and the super resolution algorithms, and we transform this remote person, in a mixed reality object that is included in our virtual studio solution, Infinity Set, and is broadcasted by the operator to the program. Of course, this is the more complex process. We can also do it easier. That is, if a television has some collaborator that is contributing every day to any program, and they want to have it remotely, sometimes it's better, instead of using this kind of technology where the resolution is not so good, we can use a standard portable green screen, and then is included, this remote people is included in the scene easily.
So as a person who's been interested in technology for a long time, understanding the concept that we're somewhere here, we go from a video stream, and then we process it with artificial intelligence and machine learning, and that video stream actually turns into a mixed reality object, which in its nature is quite different. That means even though the participant is looking at the screen, we can manipulate that person in studio so that person doesn't even look at the screen. And that's what really differentiates from an ordinary video stream to a mixed reality object. And this was kind of hard to understand to begin with, but it's when you get around and play with it, it's quite fun.
Yeah. And this is the video where we can see a bit of the technology. The first thing that we are going to see is the app, the app, when we capture the remote participant. It's very easy to install. You have the capture of the remote people that want to participate in a TV program. And then we apply, here we can see how the artificial intelligent algorithms are applied. The background is extracted first, and then we increase the resolution with the super resolution algorithms. And the connection setup is quite easy. As you can see, just a mobile phone, and there's a communication during the process with the operator. The operator has the virtual control room where decides which remote person is going to be included in the program. And we can integrate these people in a virtual studio, for example. And you can see in this example from TVR that this person is included in a virtual studio remotely. In a real studio, we did it with a real studio. We integrated this remote woman with no green screen in this studio, and even an XR stage. We can also integrate it in any kind of virtual production. And this is the team of the development of this project at Maya.
So when we tested this in NRK, we were very fond of the concept that we should just mostly use the mobile phone because, as I said, that's the device that everybody brings with them. During the course of this project, of course, we had the pandemic, and then in order to have guests at all, we really needed to have people phoning in this way. We integrated it in a real TV studio, and we used it in a very noisy room right here. It's a lot of lines, a lot of different complex backgrounds. So for the algorithm to actually be able to remove all the background, it's going to be a very hard job. So we tried to find like the toughest circumstances possible, and we also wanted to have one operator being able to do the whole thing. So we spent about a year with testing and validating and trying to figure out what are our really requirements, and we discovered a lot of things that we didn't think that we were going to find out, so that's quite interesting.
Yeah, another use case was Premier Sports in Ireland. They wanted also to teleport some people, some guests and collaborators to the TV studio. They wanted to use mobile cameras. They validated two types of cameras, the mobile phone and also the webcam from a laptop. They integrated in a real studio because they just work with a real studio, and they wanted to do it without a green screen. So the results were quite good with both cameras. And the good thing is, well, during the pandemic, we had the problem to travel. So we were not able to go there to install the technology. So we sent the technology to each television, and we give remote support to install the technology. And we validated that it was very easy to set up the technology in any television. It was not necessary that we went there to install the technology. And the other use case is Romanian television. This case was a little bit different because they were working in a virtual studio. All the productions that they do with this technology, with Admire technology, was in a virtual studio, but they wanted to test just, or they wanted to use just the mobile phone camera, and they tested 2 different cases, not just the teleportation or the capture of the people without green screen, but also with green screen, because as I told you, they have some people that they contribute to the programs every day, and they wanted to avoid to travel every day to the television. So they did also some tests capturing the remote participant over a green screen, and the results were very, very positive. It was some problems of the capture without green screen is sometimes the algorithms are not well trained, and some part, for example, the feet or the lower part of the body is not well captured, but with a green screen you can solve this problem.
So I thought this example was quite cool because you put 2 people in the same room and they're supposed to interact with each other. And of course the challenge is that we do a lot of processing in the background. So we do super resolution, we do edge detection, and we do everything, and it takes processing time. So for me to say something to the other party, we need things to happen really fast. So I think we had about 800 milliseconds latency, 700, end to end. And what's happening is like 25 images per second is going through this exact process. So it's a very intense compute challenge.
Yeah, in fact, it's not just the capturing and integration of one people from a remote place in a television. It's also the interaction. It should be some kind of dialogue between the person that is in the real stage and the people that is teleporting.
And of course, you don't exactly know where everybody is, so we tried to figure out if there were some cues that we could give people. So if a respondent from the physical studio was talking to you, you would hear it on your left ear, so you would turn to the correct person, or you would turn to the right, based on who was saying what, right? So you could interact basically with the persons that are not in your location.
Exactly.
So we wanted to increase the audience participation in these TV programs because we think more participation actually builds loyalty. And we wanted to really use the latest machine learning, AI algorithms, and utilize and leverage that. And of course, we went through the pandemic, so being able to work in a new way wasn't really a choice. We had to. Sometimes it's very nice to be forced to do changes, and this pandemic really did that for us. And also a big benefit of this is not having to travel people around a lot. It reduces our carbon footprint for our operations, so that's also a big benefit. So what happens, I touched upon the fact that we have augmented reality, we're creating a mixed reality object. So what is real anymore, right? Because we are adding something, we're doing super resolution, we're taking something that's very low resolution and blowing it up. So at some point we feel, okay, should we tag this material in some way? The same way that we have a live tag, should we say, okay, these images were enhanced using augmented reality? And how can we really depend that we have the audience's trust when we do this, right? Because we live in a world of fake news and manipulated deep fakes, everything. So we need really to have a system that can bring transparency to between the relationship between the viewers and the broadcasters. So luckily in this project we also have the Touraj Ebrahami, who is the president of the JPEG, which is the Joint Photographers Expert Group, a very talented professor in Zurich. He's now heading up work with the JPEG Trust, which is a new standard for authenticating and bringing provenance to media assets. So it should be visible for everybody to see what has actually been done with the images that you are consuming. So this is a standardization process. It's happening right now, and in 2024, we will see that being ratified and passed through as a standard.
Yeah, And from the technical side, the prototype is finished, it's validated. Now we are refining this prototype and make it more robust in order to be commercial soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I'm going to say again, scan the QR code for questions. And thank you very much for these very inspiring new technologies that are being implemented right now. We've seen a lot of innovative trends. The question now is, how do you create the conditions for innovation to happen? And for this, I would like to welcome on the stage Jan Müller. He's the CEO of the Netherlands Regional Public Broadcasters. Welcome on the stage, Jan. And you have a particular situation in the Netherlands because you work with a lot of small broadcasters that you need to make work together. So that's what the presentation is going to be about.
That's it. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. And indeed, my name is Jan Müller. I'm the CEO of the Regional Public Broadcast Organization in the Netherlands, consisting of 13 independent organizations in the country. The RPO is the umbrella organization. Actually, what we do is we coordinate, we stimulate, we facilitate collaboration. And the basic idea about my presentation today is how we collectively, with these 13 broadcasters, with their independent organizations, their separate target groups, their specific needs and wants, etc., how we organized innovation together, collectively. And actually based on the assumption that we work following the principle of collaboration, what we call collective genius. But first this. I think this slide actually is the reason why we decided to do this together. The Netherlands, 13 broadcasters, and you can see here by the numbers, if you watch closely, you see the difference between 2021 and 2022. And actually what you see is it looks more or less stable. This is the reach, the average reach in the country. 80%, we reach 80% of the Dutch population between 18 and 75. Let's say most of the Dutch people. But if you look more closely, you see that a few tricky things happen, especially in the online field, where it looks like we're losing traction in the younger audience group. And that's tricky. I mean, if even in the online field you see that reach is decreasing, we need to be aware of something that needs to happen. And in more spaces. It's percentages, it's not big, but the difference is there. And we feel that we need to take action here. So what we did, as I said, we collectively started to organize our innovation. And again, how? By working together. What I call collective genius. No one nowadays should do things on their own anymore. There's so much knowledge around. 13 broadcasters, about 2,000 colleagues in the country. There must be the knowledge available to transform based on our own knowledge and based on the knowledge around us. So what we did is creating this team, the digital transformation team. You can call it a lab, a hub, we call it a team. This is 20 people recruited from the 13 organizations. What we did, we actually asked the directors of the 13 broadcasters, just send us your digital talent, whether that's an online manager or head of social media or a coordinator, new media, or even a chief editor, or maybe in some cases a director. Doesn't matter as long as the person lives digital. So that was actually the idea. So we recruited these people from the 13 organizations, and young, old, experienced, inexperienced, and together they created this transformation team. Back to the basic of everything. I told about the reach, and that is a bit to be worried about. How will we be able to reach our audiences? How will we remain relevant? I think this is crucial things. What is our value? Do we know it? This afternoon, my friend Roberto will tell about value and impact, and I think this is something we all should be worried about. What is the value, the impact we make in society? How relevant are we and how relevant will we remain? So what we did actually, we wrote our long-term strategy, subtitled 2022, 2025, which is, forget it. I mean, this is not about years. You don't create strategy for 2-3 years and then come up with a new strategy. It's a rolling strategy. The fact that we do it this way is simply because we're funded this way by the government. In blocks of 3, 4, 5 years, we are funded for the next period. So that's why these years are here. But of course, this is about progress. It's about agility, probably. How to remain relevant in the long term. So what we did is we created 7 priorities, 7 strategic priorities for our near future. And 2 of them here are highlighted, number 3 and 4, digital transformation and how to organize our innovation collectively. These 2 themes together landed actually as the assignment in that transformation team. Help us to create our digital future based on the fact that collective genius, we do things in collaboration, we don't believe in solo genius, we want to bring all the knowledge and expertise that we have together in one group. And based on the fact that we have these 7 priorities, they're all linked, of course. You can't separate them really. For example, number 5, work on our diversity and inclusion. Of course, that's linked to these topics in our future as well. Inclusion means taking people with you on your journey towards that digital future, taking your audiences with them, and so on. So, but these 2 themes actually, in the scheme of our priorities, were the assignment for that team, for that digital transformation team. We defined this in our long-term strategy, of course we did. So what you see here is, these years we are working. The NOS, by the way, is the big news organization in the Netherlands, one of our key partners where we do a lot together. So if you talk about collective genius, this is an example as well. But actually I want to focus on the question that we asked ourselves, how do we stay relevant? How do we stay relevant to our public? What sort of content leads to the bond that we need to have with our background, with our audiences? How can we digitally transform as a collective? And actually, if you talk about the next period, again, forget the years, but our next step, the next step that we need to get across, is actually based on the question, how can we become and remain digitally agile? How can we be flexible and move with everything that comes on our way and our audience's way? To make it very simple, we set just one clear goal. We saw that we lose track, lose ground, lose audience in the younger target groups. Of course, we can't afford it. You might recognize it from your own situation. We can't afford to lose this important target group. It's the basis of everything. Of course, there's still a lot of people, especially in our case, regional broadcast. Our audiences are above average older than, let's say, the national broadcasters face. But still, we can't afford to lose that younger target group. So that's, and younger, 1545, mind you. I tried to do it 1556, so I would be included in the younger target group. They didn't follow me. But this is important. This is the focus for us, a younger target group. And we've seen a lot of examples already today, beautiful examples this morning about how to address these younger people. I love that line from Nella. Don't be kak, be lekker. I understand it, being Dutch. But how to be lekker, how to be attractive, how to be sexy for my audiences, how to be able to bind them, to connect with them. So that's a very simple goal, and there's also one very clear need. What you see here is everything that the digital transformation team came up with in the last 5 months after we started the team. All these projects based on 5, and forget the content because it's more about the structure and how we did it, based on 5 roadmaps and the levels of development from an idea to execution. Actually, moving from here to there means to become digitally agile. That's the goal, that's the goal, that's the assignment for my transformation team. So how did we do it? Again, this is not about what we did. Of course, I will give you some examples, but we've seen many beautiful things already today. I want to focus on the structure. How did we do it? And hopefully it gives you some inspiration as well. So how did that digital transformation team work? Well, we invited specialists to the team. People from LinkedIn, for example, just to understand how they link with their audiences, how they remain relevant, how they connect and make people connect through their platforms. You can learn always from these sort of examples, and it helped us a lot, I must say. We worked at universities, we shared knowledge with other media organizations. We're part of the 3 layers of the Dutch public broadcast sector. So of course we exchange knowledge with the national broadcasters and the local broadcasters. These 3 layers interact as well. And in terms of knowledge, it's useful to share, but also with private parties. Why not? We're all dealing with the same issues, don't we? So knowledge sharing with other media organizations, inspirations from innovators. Just talk to the frontrunners. Talk to the people who came up with crazy ideas or simple ideas that turned out to become crazy. So we invited a girl who has a dance school, and don't ask me why, but she's one of the most popular on TikTok. Hundreds of thousands of views every time again, promoting her dance school. Okay? But it works. So there's something in that sort of ideas, and that helped us to create our own ideas as well. Sharing success stories, but also be able to accept that you might fail. It's about experimenting as well. Transformation, digital transformation is about experimentation as well. Otherwise, you will never be able to innovate the way you want. So accept that things might go wrong. And of course, there's money involved, and in our case, even public money, but still, to get there, to become that digital agile organization, you have to be able to fail sometimes. Celebrate failures, because you can learn from it, as long as you learn from it. Again, the younger audiences, invite them, talk to them, create evenings where you listen to them, just how they consume media. How does their life look when it comes to media? And of course, AI. We will hear it all the time, and it's, every day it's getting more and more. And this morning I opened the windows and put on the television. There was a BBC, there was a professor in Canada warning for the effects of AI. It's one of the many. In this case, it was about military, what could happen if things go wrong. Yeah, it sounds pretty gloomy, all these things. But for us, it is a very helpful tool as well, as long as you use it in the right way. And of course, we need to think about what does it mean in terms of our ethics. We're journalists, mainly. I mean, 80%, 70% of my organization consists of journalists. They need to be able to come up with trustworthy news, be trusted brands. These 13 organizations are trusted brands. People know them. My people talk their language. They speak with them. They see them in the streets. They can't afford to fuck up. Excusez le mot. So, important to think about AI in the best possible way. It could help. It brings a lot of tools. I'll show you some examples. But also don't forget that there's ethics around. And maybe it's safety over usefulness first when it comes to AI. I think we can organize a whole seminar about that topic alone. But for us, an important thing, of course. So, some deliverables, some examples of what we did and what this team did in the structure that we built together. What we did is we tried to come up with a vision of how to evaluate digital platforms. What are the contact points of all these people during the day? How do they encounter with WhatsApp, TikTok, Twitter, Netflix, apps on their mobile, radio, television, and so on. So that's what we did first. So we created editorial teams from these 13 broadcasters, thinking about how to connect collectively with all these platforms that people are working with, our audiences. Try to understand how they work. And one of the things we did was come up with a shared vision on how to cater to media behavior. Again, what happens during the day? When people wake up, have their first cup of coffee, 15 to 25 years, they open their TikTok, they start to WhatsApp, they look on their Instagram. This is based on simple research. It's not very thorough, but still just based on clever thinking, inviting people, inspiration from people around you. listening to young people as well, and make up your mind when it comes to how to connect to these people, in what way. Here, 45, 55, 55, 65. Krant, the newspaper, still plays a role. Well, it's only here. They don't look in newspapers anymore. Yeah, digitally maybe. They consume news in a totally different way. So these are the things that help us, at least help us. Again, it's about the how. It's not about what we did with it, but it helps us to understand our respective target groups and the way they consume media and are about to consume in the future. So after 2 months, so what I said, we built that team, 20 people more or less, being brought together in Hilversum, in the heart of the media of the country. 2 days together, just in one room for 2 days. And then a month later, again 2 days, and a month later, again 2 days. So we had blocks of 2 days in which people were immersed. I think that's needed as well. If you talk about your digital future and about your agility, be able to respond to changes in the market and in audiences, you need to be immersed in this topic. And it doesn't work when you sit down for 2 hours, have a brainstorm. It's about the longitude of everything, all the ideas that come into place. So after these first 2 months, after these 4 sessions I think we had, the 2-day sessions, we had an explainer video, just explaining our own colleagues what we're doing. He's a journalist, he's a presenter, and this guy tells us in a 5-minute clip, what is digital transformation about? How do we digitally transform our organizations? How will we move from the analog to the digital domain? We created a simple 2-pager, just explaining what we're doing. It's based on trust, that it's based on trustworthy brands, that it's based on being relevant, that's based on creating value. And these roadmap on the 5 themes that I just showed you in that big overview of projects, these 5 themes, the roadmaps with the timing and so on, landed in this final document. So for the first 2 months, it was, of course, based on theory, thinking, talking, writing, sketching, creating. That's what we did. Then, after 5 months, we came up with these 8 projects. 4 pilot projects, where we will just experiment with things, and 4 what we call support projects. Things for the longer run, making it easier and better for people to innovate. Standardized innovation methods in terms of the steps to be taken. I'll show you that later. A digital skills academy. We need to be able to educate ourselves, learn from the world around us. An academy where we bring in the digital things that happen around us. People constantly be aware of the makers, mainly the journalists, constantly being aware of what's going around. Digital leadership is crucial as well. Digital transformation is not about technology at all. It's about culture. It's about building a digital culture in your organization. It means you need to take people with you on that whole journey. And I'm sure you recognize it. For us, there were people who've been working in the broadcast organizations for 30 years. From the start of television almost. Is it easy for them to transform? No, of course not. It's not. It's unsafe. It's creepy. Or not. Some people do. I love it. There are also people that are this layer of stubbornness, maybe. You have to be aware of that as well. So take them with you. That's why we decided to create a digital transformation team that was built from the bottom. It was bottom up, nothing top down. It was to them. They defined our innovation calendar. They did these things. So digital leadership, crucial in my opinion. How to remain leaders in that very difficult digital environment. Understanding youth. If you focus on youth, even when it's 15 to 45, if you focus on them, you better talk to them. We create panels. We have these regular meetings with them, just talking about their lives, mainly. That's it. How do they live? How do their digital lives look like? These people, young people, live online. What does it mean? So this youth panel is actually built together with other, I'll show you later, together with other national and local broadcasting, a way to be attached to this target group and understand what's happening on a regular basis. Just schedule a way to be informed and listen to what they do and how they think. Pilot projects, of course, AI. I was just talking about it. Inevitable. You need to understand what's going on in journalism and talk about AI and just just do some experiments. There's a funny one, cross-regional rural youth brand. There's a big difference between city people and the rural area. I think that 15-year-old in Amsterdam looks much more like a 15-year-old in Madrid than a 15-year-old in Schuddehuisveen, if it exists, I don't even know. But you understand what I mean. So it's a way to understand what happens in these areas. So we were trying to come up with a brand that actually appeals to people that are not necessarily focusing on city life. It's also nice to work with very young teams who are not preoccupied, not used to a way of working that we've been used to over the last 20, 30 years. Just let them create their own structures, organizations, way of working, assignments. So experiment with teams, with young media makers. And share. It's crucial. I found out that even after we started not so long ago, the fact that we did start created a sort of buzz internally. The fact that we shared it with the 13 directors and their 13 chief editors created a sort of buzz. Suddenly there was this, it worked, literally. There was this atmosphere of positivity again, of looking forward, and not top-down this time. It's not the director saying, guys, we do this, this, and this, and you have to act like that. It doesn't work. Collective genius is from bottom up. I think it worked pretty well for us. So, for example, a few examples, and then I'll finish. AI in journalism research, build in AI integrations into your content management systems. See what happens if they suggest titles. Create text after using a few keywords. Generate subtitles. I think this is already happening in many places. Talk to the guys here. Important. For us, it's certainly important. Also in terms of diversion and inclusion. I mean, being able to subtitle your content straight away helps people to be part of what you do. Recommendation technology, of course, empower low literacy. I mean, 20% of the Dutch population is not very digitally literate, so we need to help them as well. And then you can work with all types of software to predict the power of your message. That's why we use this already. So this works. I said digital sharing tool. Well, this is an example of how it looks like for us. This is what we built. It's just a place where everything comes together, based on specific topics, information, facts validation, content creation, distribution, opinions. I mean, I was just talking about that professor in Canada. Well, open your television or any media in an hour and you will see another professor or another world leader talking about AI. So opinions about AI, this is probably one of the most important parts of the sharing tool. But again, a place for people to come, to see what's going on, to follow what the transformation team is doing, and also to follow what we collectively are doing to become digitally agile. Forget the text, because it's Dutch and I don't think you will read it. But this is about the system that we created, a standardized innovation method that everyone understands that when you submit an idea, you go through the first phase, you submit the idea, you formulate the assignment, the plan, you get 20,000 euros for that first part. Very easy, very clear, 20K to do that. Then when it's approved, it goes on to the next round, the validation. Write a business case. What do we need to accomplish? How does the business case look like? For that phase, there's 40,000 available. And then when that's approved, we go to the realization phase, develop the product, decide about how to evaluate, how to share the knowledge around it, and so on. And that's the final budget for 200,000. It's just a way of thinking. It can be 10, 30, and 180. But it's the way to put a budget behind it, to still be flexible enough to experiment, and at the same time organize your innovation. And I was talking about this youth research panel. It's pretty good, I must say. Simple. Understand what they think, how they live, how they consume media, and work your way through your own civic themes, or the way you work digitally. This is what we do with our partners from the national broadcasters and the local broadcasters. Actually, because we know I, as a consumer, I'm not a client of the national broadcaster or the local broadcaster. I use it whenever I need to be there. So it's another way of thinking. We're very used to broadcast, to think from ourselves, but it's the other way around. All these people, they decide with their mobiles in hand, they decide how and when to consume the news. It's not us. We need to be able to track them, to keep them. That's my story for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we're going to wrap up this session now, and just before the Q&A, I'm going to talk about, well, an acronym that has been used quite a lot this morning, AI. So if we think about that, it means everything and anything and nothing at the same time, right? So AI, at its core, means it's the use of computer systems to perceive, synthesize, and infer information. So once you've said that, and once I can get my slide deck onto the screen, you don't say much. In fact, you've been using AI every day for years. Any way to get the slide deck on the screen, please? And when I say that you've been using it for years and years, just using Google is using AI effectively, because they do sift through information, classify it, present it to you in some way.
Free advertising.
Yeah, that's not the right one.
That's free advertising, thank you.
You had such an impact on the session, Jan, that I'm going to have to use your slide deck.
And do the Q&A.
Okay, let's do the Q&A then. So, since we have our speakers on stage, there are some questions that the public asked, and one is for Noora, which is, what is the target platform or publication platform that you're using to apply your new digital strategy? Do you use social media at all? Do you just use them to promote your content? Do you try to bring people to your own platform? What's the strategy in terms of distribution?
Yeah, we try to bring the audience to our own platforms, but we are at the social media. For example, our YLE News has different kind of platforms on Instagram, on other social media platforms, and our youth team, they're making also videos on a YouTube channel. So we reach out also the audience from there, but we're always trying to bring them on our online platforms.
Okay, question for Carlos. So one of the key ingredients, and also something you've talked about, you're thinking about, is trying to turn your presenters into streamers and give them the ability to control what's on the screen, like we can see on Twitch. But before you do that, and as you stream so much, 104 hours of content a day, is it? Do you monitor the comments, and what kind of interaction do you have with the audience?
The interaction that we have right now with the shows that we are live broadcasting on the radio are texting, WhatsApp. We are dealing with video calls, but not with some kind of Discord and something like this yet. It's quite traditional, probably.
But you're thinking about using more input from the users, and I say users, that's almost like a social media term, but for...
It depends on the last slide I gave you. It depends on the freedom that we can get, that we can give the anchor to put some scenes and some split the screens and insert some comments. We don't have yet, I think, the technology to do that.
Thank you. Miss Reality, guys, I have to say the #1 question is, how much does it cost?
Well, it depends on
That's always the answer, isn't it?
yeah, well, you know, there's a virtual studio solutions behind. So at the end, the app is something that could be for free if you have, because you will need to have the virtual studio solution. And the virtual studio solution, as everybody knows, is can cost very, very low, because if you don't want to have a lot of different things that you can include here, or it could be quite expensive if you want to have a lot of modules. So at the end, it depends on the virtual studio solutions. But maybe we could say that it could be around 10,000 or 15,000 euros.
As a starting price to implement that.
But it's sort of like how much does a car cost, right? It could be basically anything, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. By the way, did you take into account the electricity consumption of the GPUs you're using in your carbon footprint, replacing the cars? Because that's also something that is...
Yeah, so we consider that, and I think there's... right now there's a framework for calculating the CO2 emissions for both extended reality and also virtual reality. And so right now we have very good numbers through the Albert project.
And you need to work on it. Jan, probably the managers in the room are all asking themselves the same question is, it's all nice and well to have these people gather, but you're taking the youngest, the smartest, the most agile. What trouble do you face when you get into the implementation phase?
Well, first of all, these people, they remain in their organizations. So what we do is actually take them out for a while, 3 times 2 days, in order to come up with this. And then they go back to their organization. So while they learn, they bring what they learn back into the organization. I think that's a model that should work. We don't know yet because it's still pretty early days, but that's how the system works. In terms of implementing, that means that we secure the way it's implemented based on the ideas coming from the transformation team that they will bring to their respective organizations. That helps us to implement it in the way we think is viable.
But also for the managers, they really need to be involved, because these guys would come up with formats and ideas and stuff to do, and the newsroom editors and the managers, they must be brought on board. Isn't that a challenge?
Absolutely, it is, yeah. So this is the short version. And of course, there's a lot of work in terms of creating commitment. Again, it's bottom-up. I think that's the basic idea of what we do, and that works. But then it comes to convincing the directors, convincing the chief editors, convincing everything editorial, actually. But given the fact that they're part of their organization, it helps to build trustworthiness, I would say. But of course, it is about taking every step by step by step by step. So sharing knowledge is a crucial part of being successful in this sort of transformation phases, I guess. Because any certain moment you need to be able to make people understand what we're doing, what it means for their organizations, and take them on that journey. So, of course, we have moments that we will debrief the 13 directors, that we will debrief the chief editors. And in the last years, we built structures in that way already. So there is a structure. The chief editors, they have their collective approach towards things, the directors as well. So it's easy to tap in these substructures. But it's
so what I hear is like you're giving priority to iterative processes where people try stuff out, you allow them to fail.
Exactly.
Learn from that and start again.
Yeah, and that was a crucial thing to start that way. That needed approval of the 13 directors, because the money needs to come from somewhere as well. Yeah. So if you talk about costs and what does this cost, well, actually it's very simple, 50 million euros. Yeah. 50 for 10 years. So we set aside 50 million for 10 years. Divided over 10 years, divided over 13 broadcasters, it's at the end it's not even that much on an annual basis, but we decided, okay, this needs to have a price tag to understand what we're doing.
Thank you very much. One last question for Carlos, because that was also popular, is you talked about the amount of programming that you were doing. You did not talk too much about the results and the people actually watching on other platforms on TV and radio.
And I don't have the exact results. I know that last month it was I think, the best month for us in the last 12 years. In TV, we reached like 11.5 share in prime time, and we're leader in the news.
But I mean, these new platforms are catching up.
And in the new platforms, I don't have the numbers exactly, but I know that we can reach 1 million people every day between TV, radio, and digital channels.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm going to wrap up the session on innovation and trends by fulfilling my promise, by trying to decipher this. So as we've established, you do use AI every day by using just Google. AI in and of itself can mean a lot of stuff. It's used in research for, figuring out some shapes of proteins and stuff. You can do insurance forecasting, trying to know how many houses are going to burn this year. I mean, a lot of stuff we're not going to talk about today. But it's a very wide and broad topic. The one I'm particularly interested in today is generative AI. And Jan touched a bit on that in, talking about integrating AI-generated content into the content management system, the software that is used to write articles at the Dutch broadcasters, and try to see if it works. Most probably, what you've seen about generative AI in the last weeks or so is that. I so wanted that one to be true, but yeah, I know we are in a very Catholic country right now. And also maybe this one, like the fake arrest of Donald Trump and the fake explosion last week of the Pentagon. All of that, these are AI-generated images that were created using tools like Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or DALL-E. Many of these tools are available, oftentimes for free, and are being used. I'm the CEO of a company that is tracking disinformation and monitoring disinformation online, and I can tell you, oh boy, we've seen stuff in the last month that we did not see before. There's one thing I love in presentations, that's bullet points. So here's a few for you. These are all the generative AI tools that went onto the market in the last year, and all of them did not fit on the slide, right? So it's a very, very active market right now, where we ask the computers to spit out stuff so that we don't have to create it. Where we put the limit on how we use that content, tells a lot about who we are and what our goals are. So when we talk about generative artificial intelligence, it's basically using the computer to make up stuff given a prompt. So we write a line of text or a little more, and then it gives you audio, images, and text. And the number one problem is this one. Trying to figure out what was AI generated or not, trying to decipher or look through a very convincing picture, piece of audio, deep fake video is tricky. And if you look at a recent report from Europol, so European police offices, they wrote a 50-something page on where we are going, and what is really striking is like in 2 years' time, an overwhelming majority of the online content might be AI-generated, full-fledged, fake. A little bit like, 90% of emails being sent today are spam, sorry. So I was trying to achieve scam sometime. So one of the big issues now is to try to figure out, was it AI generated or not? We've seen some headlines that are overly optimistic in my view, like Google solved it all. They're going to watermark anything that is AI generated. Yeah, well, okay, so it's going to work for pictures, but then if you take a screenshot of the picture and republish it, it doesn't work. But but it's not going to work for text, and we know that's one of the big ones, AI-generated text. We know that Microsoft and Adobe, which are really racing with everyone else, Meta and Google and the others, to have these conversational AI and generative AI systems like in Photoshop where you can add elements into your picture. They try to do it in a responsible manner, but they also try to do it in a capitalistic manner, which means that they are fighting the others to be the first ones with there's several levels of appreciation as to, to how much they are paying attention to the consequences. They say they are very cautious. The reality might be otherwise. So, no, they did not solve that problem. They did not even try to put something on the market before they put the generative AI systems in place. Of course, everybody's been talking about ChatGPT. What is striking about ChatGPT is the landslide that it was causing in the world. It took just 3 months to OpenAI to have 100 million users of ChatGPT. It took 2 years to Facebook. It took 9 months to TikTok. And looking at the last figures, the last available, which are for April, they already reached 147 million users worldwide. Why? Because you can do your homework with it, you can do your tedious work and pretend that you did actually do it to your boss. And we are experimenting with it without really knowing how much we can trust it. So I figured maybe the best way would be to ask ChatGPT directly. ChatGPT is what is called an LLM, which is a large language model. So you might know that everything that is spat out from ChatGPT is based on data up until September 2021, which is like the data set that was used to train the model, that large language model. So if we ask that question to ChatGPT, it spits out an answer. And how would they convince you that LLMs are not dangerous? First of all, ChatGPT doesn't know what it is, because it's not large language model that it spits out, but it's language learning models. That is not an acronym. So it starts on the wrong foot. But let's have a listen at the conclusion of that block of text that I just displayed. And we're going to have it read it out.
In summary, LLMs are tools under human control and supervision, operating within strict algorithms, and lack the personal motivations or understanding that would make them inherently dangerous. Their safety is further ensured through thorough testing, oversight, and ongoing updates and improvements. It's important to approach LLMs with a balanced perspective, understanding their potential for positive impact, as well as being aware of the need for responsible use and continuous improvement.
And by the way, I didn't read that. That's an AI model that I trained with my voice, and I just gave it the text to read it out to you. How convincing was it? I can't judge, but you can. So these tools exist. That's the answer that ChatGPT spits out. What does it say when you ask it the opposite? Actually, it's quite relevant, because, yeah, there is some data privacy concerns, there is some misinformation, disinformation, there is potential for bias, etc., etc. So the question you ask is quite important, and then the level of trust that you have in the output of ChatGPT or any other conversational bots, let it be Bing AI or Bard or Llama or all the ones that you've been reading about in the news, is quite important. And let's see an example from just last week in the New York Times. They ran that story. A lawyer used ChatGPT in a case. So long story short, there was a guy flying on Avianca, and one of the personnel hit his knee with a tray. Remember, we are in the United States of America, which means they are suing the company, right? So the judge dismissed the case, saying that that's not enough reason to sue a company. And the lawyers of the victim, they objected, and they had that huge file and that brief that was citing all the jurisprudence and all these cases where similar victims were proven right. The only problem is that none of these 10 cases that were in the brief of the lawyer existed because ChatGPT made them up. So when you are implementing AI tools into the tools, the software that your journalists are using, you have to be extremely careful about maintaining editorial control and seeing that the information, well, it still needs to be verified. It can be considered as an assistant, it can be considered as a sort of a source, if you will, but like with any other source, it needs to be fact-checked, right? Of course, as we live in a world where money is a strong incentive, there is a lot of ChatGPT integrations going on today. If you use Zapier, which is a service, very popular service, that is a kind of a translation layer that makes you combine tools together to produce something bigger, you can associate ChatGPT to 5,000 different services and apps. And people creating, foreign influence campaigns, disinformation campaigns, scam campaigns, we see a surge into that fake content that is being created. We see people creating, I would record 5 seconds of your audio and then train a model and then pretend to be you and call your son to ask him to open the house. We've seen already cases like that. And we're not even touching the possibility of AI controlling the infrastructure because, I talked earlier about 5G. Having everything connected is also exposing everything to attacks. And there is a mayhem possibility. And just 2 days ago, prominent AI researchers, CEOs, political figures, they published a statement on AI. And basically they say AI can be like nuclear war or a pandemic. Let's pay attention to that. There is also the possibility that all of that is a PR stunt, where they are really trying to make themselves more important than they are. But what all of this is telling us is that, yes, there's a big shift coming, and we have already started that cycle. And we shouldn't really be asking ourselves, okay, can I use it or not? Should I use it or not? It's going to be part of everybody's reality at some point or another. OpenAI is conscious of that. They just last week opened a tender, and they're willing to fund the invention of processes to decide what should go into the training models for the next generations of AI tools. But long story short, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a big mess. And people will need to be able to rely on trustworthy sources. And we need to be particularly careful in the way we use these tools and integrate them into our narratives and processes so that we can feel confident that we are still trustworthy. We can, of course, react by being news organizations and journalists. We've touched on some of these possibilities. While remaining the editorial control, we can use these tools to help us create content. I put on the slide right, but it could be create audio, and there's many nice and really exciting possibilities into AI that we can be using, generative AI. And that is something that is not done to the best of my knowledge today, to better understand the audience and use AI to pinpoint important trends and consumption habits. We can also monitor how disinformation is spreading, because that is something, if you're not aware that a piece of disinformation is circulating online, you cannot really do anything about it as a news organization, debunk it, or trying to educate the population how to not be exposed to these pieces of disinformation. So monitoring how it spreads on which platforms. Let's say, and we use the Counter-Strike example, I don't see any news organization monitoring what's happening into multiplayer video games to see if someone is trying to spread fake news there. So AI can be used for that too. and of course, monitoring AI itself. So to wrap it up, I just want to leave you with a quote from Michel Serres, the late French philosopher. It wasn't better in the old days. I don't buy that, but the future could be worse if you don't pay attention. Thank you very much.
There's an expression in Spanish, renovarse o morir, which means to renew or die, and we have seen that media must undergo a process of renewal. It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, so we must keep working. Thank you to our speakers, to our moderate, txalo bero bat beraientzat. And now, how do you feel about taking a break for lunch? Yes? Okay, so see you all back here at